Welcome to the Diesel Podcast presented by DFC Diesel. George, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you and learn more about Line-X. I've always wanted to talk with you guys on the podcast. I've been a customer since the mid 2000s, so I have some hands-on experience with getting my truck beds aligned with your product. Loved them, and I thought it would be great to chat with you today, learn more about you, the company, the future of upgrading our vehicles. So welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Patrick, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And, it sounds like you guys got quite the organization. And I'm glad to connect with your viewers and you and answer any questions you may have. But, just to start off, I've been in the automotive aftermarket for 40 plus years. Okay, kind of giving away my age here, right? But 40 plus years, I actually started when I was 14 years old, changing tires for the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, right? Back in those days, you could get work papers, right? And I went on I did that all through high school and college, working basically full time and going to school. I was an ASE certified master technician for 10 years plus. I was an automotive instructor. I taught automotive repair. I specialized in computer control command vehicles and anything that had to do with onboard diagnostics and so on and so forth. But then I got into the operations management side of things. I worked for the Pep Boys organization for 10 years. I then moved over to Mako Auto Body and Paint. That was my first experience with franchises. Then in April of 2007, I made the leap and came to Line-X as their vice president of operations. And a lot has changed since that date in 2007, right? So the automotive world has been my life, right? That's all I've ever done. That's all I know. And I've had a lot of fun doing it. As far as Line-X goes, we started actually, the official start date for Line-X is 1993, right? But actually it started back in 86. A chemist by the name of Claudio Burton, based out of Southern California, created this polyurea spray-on material, right? And when he created it, what his first thought is this would be great in the industrial world, for protection and this, that, and the other. So he tested it on the back of a pickup truck, right? And from that point, the rest is history. In 1993, we started out as a dealer network. And then 1999, we actually franchised the organization. At that point, things just started to ramp up. We were, mainly spraying bedliners, right? And we were very successful at it. Back in the day, it was Rhino linings and Line-X. We were button heads left and right, but we pretty much owned the market, especially the new market, the new dealerships and new vehicle market. And then we ran into a little bit of a hiccup in 2008 and 9 with the economic downturn when vehicles kind of went away. And we had to redirection ourselves into doing more commercial and industrial work in order basically to stay alive. And we were successful at that too as well. We did a lot of work. We sprayed the Pentagon at one point because we do manufacture a ballistic material. We also, we spray a lot of the protective vest for the U.S. Army and for police. It is something we've been doing for a long, long time. We actually are spec'd in by the organizations that make those breastplates. And then things started to change in the market once again, and we had to evolve, right? So the OEMs started to spray bedliners in the factory. Once that started to happen, we realized that we were going to start losing that market share. Still profitable, still had tons of franchises, things were going well, but we knew that we had to, take a different direction. So in 2013, we developed the first Line-X branded product. It was a simple step bar, manufactured in Windsor, Canada. And that program was the beginning of us developing multiple Line-X branded products. I mean, we sell everything from bedliners to tonneau covers to battery chargers to coolers, and at that point they were all under the Truck Gear by Line-X name. We have since evolved everything into Line-X branded products. So it has done really well for us. Our franchises have adopted the new protocol. And what they're doing now is that, their customers are coming in and they can offer them these 21 core services that we now offer, which include bedliners and other sprays as well, but also too everything from tires and wheels to tint to step bars, tonneau covers. We have our own brand of hitches, and I mean the list just goes on, right? I mean you name the accessory and we have our own brand, or we partnership with another organization. Currently we work through a major WD in North America who is our distribution center, and it has worked really well for us. Line-X over the years, the chemical process itself has changed, has gotten better, I would say. We have developed multiple different products. And one of the first products we came up with was what we called Line-X Renew. Line-X Renew is basically what that is if you have an existing bedliner, whether it's Rhino or some other brand, we can take that bedliner and we can make it look like new again and make it look like a Line-X. So that's our Line-X Renew. A little bit later on, we developed what we call Line-X Premium. Now, this is something that is exclusive to Line-X. One of the problems you have with a bedliner is that you're spraying down what we call a hybrid material, right? And it's very durable, very strong, right? It gets sprayed on under, for Line-X anyway, we hold it to a certain standard. It's got to be sprayed to a certain thickness. The bed's got to be prepared a certain way so that it sticks properly. So we're pretty proud of that. But one of the problems you have is that UV rays have a tendency of making it fade to gray, right?
Yeah.
So we came up with Line-X Premium. Line-X Premium is a spray on top coat. You spray on the bedliner. The bedliner, by the way, is sprayed out at about 2,500 PSI and about 180 degrees onto the bed. And then while that bed is still hot, we spray this top coat on there that actually goes down, that's UV stable, that actually takes a grip of the bottom of the base coat and holds on to it. And now you have a bedliner that is UV stable. So no more graying out, no more fading, right? And that is something that's pretty much exclusive to Line-X, that product. And we developed all these in-house, by the way. We took it a step farther and we developed a product called Line-X Ultra. Line-X Ultra is very similar to Premium, that it is a UV stable product, but it can be sprayed as a standalone. Suppose you wanted to spray your entire vehicle a certain color and you wanted to protect it. Line-X Ultra would be the way to go, right? Because you can do it in color, you can color match, and then of course, you get the durability of the product sprayed on the exterior of the vehicle as well. So that became really popular. One of the most popular sprays that we do on the exterior of vehicles is we spray the rocker panels. The rocker panels obviously take a lot of beating, particularly with four-wheel drives. If you're like me, I live in Southern California. I have a house in Mexico. I'm in the mountains and out on dirt roads all the time. And my 4x4 is taking a beating, right? So the rocker panels sprayed protect it from being dented or the paint being scratched or eventually even rusting out. as we all know, with those problems. So, we're pretty proud of all that, about all those opportunities that we bring to the customer from our spraying side. But, now that we've kind of changed our model, starting in 2015, we started to really ramp up our model change. And now, if you go to our website today, you see we sell everything, right? We have caps, tonneau covers. I went through the list a few minutes ago, and there's virtually every item that's out there, right? And then, of course, we have our partners that we use for selling products to as well. So say you don't want a Line-X branded product. Well, we could get you virtually any branded product that you're looking for. If you're looking for a BMW hitch, no problem. We can get that for you, and we can install it for you. And the nice thing about what we do at Line-X is, because over the years, we have been so fortunate with our products, we have extremely low customer service issues, right? I mean, I've worked for other companies that had old customer service departments.
Yeah.
We don't get enough complaints or issues we don't even have a person who's a customer service rep. We just take care of the complaints, or the franchises do, if there are any. But we offer a lifetime warranty. So, I mean, if you get your bedliner done in Los Angeles, right, and you happen to be in Boston and there's a problem, right, you can get the warranty taken care of. If you have a step bar or a tonneau cover, that's a Line-X branded product, they come with lifetime warranties, right? So, nobody does that, right? No manufacturer does that. Real Truck doesn't do that. BMW doesn't do that. None of these other manufacturers will give you a lifetime warranty on the products, but we do on our Line-X branded products, and we've been very successful with that. Very successful.
Hey, Diesel fans, wanted to let you guys know that our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 40% off MSRP code for you. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP2540, you get your 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, opening mechanisms, handle designs, and their whole lineup is designed to meet any budget that you might have. So we really appreciate them offering that discount code just for Diesel Podcast listeners. So if you're in the market, head on over to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP2540, and get 40% off MSRP. One of the huge things with that, I think, is the national distribution of Line-X and those franchises you mentioned, which is so unique to me, because I think of lifetime warranty. I might just be dealing with a manufacturer that their headquarters is in one state. I've got shipping times or other things that are involved versus the huge network that you have. I could see that really being a benefit if that is ever an issue, which I know a lot of people with trucks, and I've had Line-X before. I've never had an issue that I had to ever use the warranty, but if I did, they're everywhere.
Well, we really pride ourselves, Patrick, on the fact that we set strict standards. I mean, if OEM bedliners, and then companies that other, I would say, local spray-on bedliner companies, or individuals that just happen to spray bedliners alongside their other business, they are not held to the standards that a franchise organization is, right? I mean, our franchises have to properly sand and clean the bed. They have to spray them to 120 mils thickness on the bed itself, right? And I can tell you that an OEM bedliner out of the factory is 80 mils. But we've done so much testing over the last 25 years, right? Wait a minute, is it 25 or 35? 35 years, right? That we know that 120 mils is the optimal thickness for the bed. Now, it's a little bit thinner on the sidewalls and on the bulkhead, right? But on the bed itself, we know that you can take a jack stand or something and throw it into the back of the bed, and it's not going to tear the bed liner. Where if it was thinner, it would actually take it and move it through the process and cause a tear. But the good thing, though, if you do damage our bed liner, they're very easy to repair. Very easy to repair. And most of the time, franchises will just repair your bed liner, whether it's ours or not, just to make you happy.
What's so interesting to me about this market, and I'm going to be dating myself a little bit, is I remember when new trucks didn't have bed liners in them. So the first thing I would do, a lot of people that I've known would do, is they'd get a bed liner. And it's so, I think back, I'm sure you saw this from when your career started. People would just throw things in the bed and the paint gets all scratched up and then it's in the elements and it starts to rust. Things roll around in there. And for those trucks, it's almost a necessary first upgrade. But you'd mentioned, the newer trucks and how they come with them. And I thought it would be really cool to spend a little bit of time on that
Okay.
because I don't know any of the details of how long does it last? Is there going to be a time where, your brand new truck, that liner that came with it just isn't going to hold up? I think maybe it's starting to show up on some of these trucks. Maybe it will in the future. And I've never heard on a podcast or had discussions with people talking about solutions for the newer trucks. So if you were to compare the two, like if I went to a Line-X branch near me, had, bedliner installed versus a brand new truck, what it might come with, is there a longevity difference? What are some of the differences between the two from a use standpoint, from everyday throwing stuff in the bed, using it for work, maybe taking it camping, putting equipment back there?
Well, okay. So to be honest, the OEM bedliners really they're not that bad. Okay, they're standard, right? There's nothing about them that says I'm special. It's just a spray-in bedliner. They don't sand the bed, so they don't stick as well, right? So you could have some peeling problems. And also too, they're sprayed robotically, right? Now, what difference does that make? Well, if you spray one robotically in the back of the pickup truck, so the next time you go out and you look at a spray-in bed liner from the factory, open the tailgate and look down at the gap between the tailgate and the bed. There's going to be a huge gap there that the robot can't spray. Whereas a Line-X spray and bed liner, we actually spray and wrap it around the end on both sides, so there is no open metal there. Okay, that's one of the things that takes us apart. The other part is we do spray thicker, so you do have more protection. And of course, our warranty, right? Our warranty is for the original owner for as long as you own the truck. Honestly, we had a warranty the other day. It was saw a guy who had a Dodge. I want to say it was a Dodge 2002 3500 series diesel, right? And he goes, hey, my bed liner in my truck has got a couple of scratches in it. Is it still under warranty? And I said, yeah. I said, we can get that fixed for you. And he goes, yeah, my truck's falling apart. But he says, but the bed liner's still there and holding up. And I said, well, send me some pictures, will you? So go back to your original question. The OEM bedliners, they don't come with a long warranty. They're sprayed in with a different process, right? But I'm not going to say that they're not adequate, right? Because they can be, right? They can be adequate. They definitely can. I know the product that they use. The product that they use is a standard, hybrid spraying material. It's basically sprayed the same way we do, except by robots. They do not sand the beds, though, right? That's a key thing. They do not. They use an adhesion promoter, which is just kind of rubbed on. So our products are definitely better. We have had, there's actually a Ford dealership in Phoenix, Arizona, in Glendale, who actually is a Line-X franchise. And the reason he is because he won't buy any Ford trucks from the dealership with the Ford bedliner. He gets them all brought in and he sprays all of them with Line-X. He puts the Line-X logo in the back corner of the truck. And he says, you know what, George? He says, I sell more trucks because of it, right? Because of the Line-X logo. So I'm pretty proud of that. Yeah, it's a really awesome feeling, Patrick. I mean, to work for a company like this because, I've worked for a lot of different kinds, Firestone, Pep Boys, Mako, right? I had another run-in with another smaller tire company. And one thing that's different about this company is that the customer's coming to us because they want to, right?
Yeah.
When I was with Pep Boys, you didn't go to Pep Boys because you wanted to. You went because your water pump was leaking or something was wrong, right? I needed my car inspected or whatever it might be. But people come to us because they want to. They come with a smile on their face and they leave with a smile on their face because they got what they wanted out of their truck. When I wear my shirt through airports, I travel extensively with the company. I'm everywhere. I always get called out of the crowd. Hey, Linex, I know that product. Got it in two of my trucks. You guys are great. We love you. So it's been a really great ride. We are, we're working through this change that we're doing right now, with the 21 core services and the model. But we've been pretty successful with it, and we're bringing on new franchises all the time. Like we just in just in April alone, well, I guess since the January 1st, 9 new franchises have opened, brand new, not people who are reselling or whatever. These are brand new locations, and I feel pretty good about that, right? I feel pretty good about that, and the time that I've been here.
Well, there's so many different applications that I keep thinking of with just real world examples of you think of diesel trucks, and I think you mentioned the ultra product and the color matching. I know people that have done that with a bumper that it was a blue metallic and they got it really close. Or
Yep.
you have a Jeep and you take the carpet out and you want Line-X on the floorboards or on the rocker panels, which is a huge one. So like with diesel trucks, there's so many different applications that they're used for, whether it's for trades, business, off-roading, overlanding, and you want to protect your investment. And I think especially it's not just the new market that's expensive, it's also used vehicles where their values are higher. You just don't want to beat up the rocker panels or the fenders or just different components. And I love how versatile it is and the different applications. And you went through a lot of great examples with ballistic plates and industrial applications and all these different facets of it. So it's something that has a use, I think, every day for people. Sometimes on the podcast, I'm talking about big turbos or racing setups or towing applications. Maybe people don't do, but when I think of coatings, it's something everyone would use in some capacity or another. And before the podcast, I had mentioned a long time ago making an appointment to have a Line-X sprayed into the bed of my truck, and I was sitting there and I thought it would be great while I was here to also have a tonneau cover installed or some of these other things. So to hear about that evolution, it makes it so convenient for the truck owner to get some of these upgrades that they want all at once.
It's a pretty interesting dynamic. We do a lot of research, obviously. I'm always looking towards the future, right? And the aftermarket business right now is about a $1.6 billion business. They expect it 10 years from now to be double that. And basically what it comes down to is that this really started in the 90s, right? There was a lot of free flowing cash in the 90s, and people were buying pickup trucks for the first time ever as a recreational vehicle, right? Or their everyday vehicle, I think of my truck. I got a 2020 Ram, right? And and I've got the crew cab, right? And I can put 3 to 4 of my grandkids in there, right? Plus I've got the bed and all that, and it's 4-wheel drive. I can take it up to the mountains. So the versatility is really crazy is what happened. So people wanted to make the vehicles their own. And some of the research that we've done, it shows that an individual buying a brand new pickup truck today will spend around $2,400 to customize the vehicle, whether it's just floor mats or step bars or tonneau cover, or whether they want to customize it in some other way with some lighting or trailer hitch. Everybody is wanting to customize their vehicle. I mean, the number one aftermarket add-on is a bedliner, right? But then from that, it's window tint, wheel and tires, step bars, tonneau covers, right down the line is the most common purchases. Tonneau covers make sense because, depending what environment you live in, right? I mean, if you live in the Northeast or, up in Canada, where we have a lot of franchises, you need a tonneau cover to protect what's in the back of your truck, right? So we sell a ton of those. That's our tonneau covers is our number one aftermarket item that we sell to customers.
I think where I live, it's almost a necessary sort of upgrade with snow and protecting what's in there. And I spent some time on the Line-X website, and there's a lot of useful products that I would put on my truck, but one of them that really intrigued me was the cargo management system. And I think that's always been an inherent issue with pickup trucks is how do you get stuff that's more towards the cab without jumping in there? And then you think of, well, what if I have a long bed? What if I've got it lifted? What if it's a little bit higher? I got bigger wheels and tires. I want to access this information quickly. And I thought that was so cool to be able. It's just, I was like a kid in a candy store. I thought I could drop off my truck, you guys could put the bed liner in, get the cargo management system, and then put a ton of cover on, and I can go happy with however I'm going to use this truck.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm all set.
No, absolutely. And that's our whole goal. That's our whole model right now. And we expect that model to be, pretty sustainable for the next 10 to 15 years, right? And I know that some other markets are changing quickly, but we don't envision, based on our market research and what we know about the new truck market going forward, there is opportunity for us to really be the leader in, upfit, across North America. And it goes back to what you said earlier about the convenience of having the locations everywhere in North America. Is that, I mean, you can go down to, John's Bedliners and Accessories, but you have to go back to John's Bedliners and Accessories if you have an issue, right? But if you're out of town, or if you move, or, for whatever reason, right, you can get that repaired at a Line-X no matter where you are. All of our customers' purchases are put into our warranty database. So a franchise simply goes in, puts the VIN number of your vehicle in, and can pull up everything that you bought that's under warranty from Line-X. So it's really convenient. And of course, technology helps us today as well.
Common question we get from you guys a lot is, hey, I need a diesel engine. I either, I can't wait this long to get one, or normal place I get stuff from it just takes too long, or they don't have the parts in it that I need. Maybe my truck's not stock, or I tow heavy with it. I don't want to go back with just a stock engine. DFC Diesel is a sponsor of the podcast. We worked with them, hand in hand on doing episodes, answering technical questions. They have a complete lineup of Cummins, Duramax, and Power Stroke remanufactured engines that are set to a standard of ISO 9001 2015 standards, which is a huge deal in the aftermarket. And there's certain levels of quality testing, validation that are required for that. So when you get one of those engines, the type of quality that's built behind it, with an industry-leading warranty that's really comprehensive. And the other thing with that is, sometimes the options that are out there, it's a basic OEM engine. You want a little bit more. You don't want to have the same failure again. So there's a bunch of different series of engines that they have, from core, street, tow haul, and also the Speed of Air series, which we've covered on the podcast before. There's a lot of really cool benefits to it. And if you have questions about that, reach out to them. If you don't know the type of engine that you're looking for, if you go to dfcdiesel.com, there's a ton of info there. You can send an email, or you can reach out to them. Also, they're working with Speed of Air pistons, which it's the only piston that pays for itself. And there's a lot of really cool technology behind it. So you can add that into your build and be able to get better fuel economy, increase power, increase torque, and better engine life out of it. Some of the most common engine applications or series of engines that they have with that lead time, a lot of them are in stock, or they have really short lead times. So you can check your favorite retailer, or go to dfcdiesel.com, check them out, see what's in stock, see what you can get. If you have questions, maybe you want to do something that's outside of the normal series of engines, they have tons of choices for rods, cranks, pistons, valve train upgrades, tons of different things. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and check them out. When you think of trends, I'm really interested in this side of it because of the research and how you guys have your finger on the pulse, I think, of the automotive market. What are some trends that you would anticipate, or maybe you guys are starting to see already, as it relates to not just bedliners, but maybe the accessory market? And I'm thinking even completely outside of diesel. Like, I know the Ford Maverick is really popular. I've heard some rumblings of some other manufacturers getting into the smaller truck applications. I know, EVs have been something, and I'm thinking, how does this intertwine with maybe some other types of vehicles besides just a 3/4 or 1-ton truck? I'm really curious about that side.
Well, we obviously do a lot of work on the Mavericks and all the smaller mid-range, we call mid-range pickup trucks, but we also do work on SUVs, because that's, for window tint, wheels and tires. We actually had a company in Texas, in West Texas, that had a group of these big SUVs, right? Look like FBI vehicles, right? And basically what they use them for is they take hunters out on tours, right? So they set up these hunting expeditions, and the trucks going through all these trees were getting torn up. Like the outside of them just looked like somebody keyed them, right? So we overall sprayed them, all of them, right? So to protect those vehicles from that. So there are vehicles outside of the pickup truck industry that we're looking at. But one thing that you did bring up is that on the projections that I get from this company on truck production, what you're going to see over the next 8 years is you're going to see that your typical 150, 250, 350, right, vehicles are going to be flat. They're just going to be flat in sales. What we're seeing the increase is like you just said, the smaller trucks. They're becoming more popular, right? Particularly around certain age groups, right? That don't want a big pickup truck, or they live in the city or in an urban situation. I know that if I'm going downtown, I'm not taking my truck, I'm taking my little Mazda because I can park it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
You know, and with that in mind, the projections for those vehicles, and there's a couple of new manufacturers coming online too, and you're going to start seeing a little bit more of a foreign influence as well, that they're the ones that are going to be taking some of the market share away. So we're prepared for that. So we're prepared with step bars, tonneau covers for those vehicles. There's actually a startup company that is going to mirror what Tesla does, right? Whereas, you order your car online, right? And it comes stripped down. So you get this small pickup truck stripped down, and then you can go to a Line-X and get it upfitted. They've actually reached out to us and asked us if we were interested in being their partner, right? Now they're years away from starting production, right? It's just a concept on a piece of paper, but those are the kind of changes you're going to see in the automotive market going forward, right? I predict probably a slowdown in electric vehicles, right? I don't see that growing as quickly. Looking at what the manufacturers are doing today, looking at their tier one suppliers and what they're supplying over the next 5 years, I see electric vehicles going flat, particularly in the pickup truck business rather. But I do see that pickup trucks continuing to be the most popular vehicle out there on the road. And anywhere you are, I mean, I live in Southern California. I travel all over. Pickup trucks are everywhere. I mean, I was in Thailand recently, and pickup trucks are everywhere. Not as big, right? And a lot noisier, right? 4-cylinder diesel, by the way. And they're everywhere. So I see that market continuing to grow.
It's really interesting on the kind of new vehicle side, the information and the projections you have, because on my side, I'm really heavily focused. It's a diesel podcast talking about diesel trucks. And over the last 3-4 years, I don't know if people are buying them as primary vehicles, but a lot of people are stepping back to those trucks from the 90s or early 2000s, whether it's for utility or fun or whatever it might be. And you think back to that time frame, none of these accessories came from the OEMs like that, and they were tough to find. And I don't know how many millions of Ford, GM, and Ram trucks pre 2010 are out there, but there's probably a lot, and they don't have any of these. And like I said before, like before I did wheels, tires, anything like that, I would be doing a bedliner, probably be doing some of these other upgrades. So I think the potential is also there for a lot of growth or a lot of upgrades that people can do if they are stepping back to those older trucks for whatever reason they might be choosing them.
We do get our fair share of older vehicles. One of the areas where we get them from is auction lots, right? So auction lots, they'll go out and they'll buy hundreds of used vehicles. And what they'll do is that, like you said earlier, the bedliner, if it's not protected with anything, is going to look terrible, right? Because you used it for hauling stuff, right? And so we can put a bedliner in and make it look a lot better. So that's a big market for us. We also can sell them accessories, but we do get our share of individually go out and buy used vehicles, right? I will tell you that most of them are 2015 or later. We do occasionally get one that's earlier than that. And what you'll see is that manufacturers of aftermarket parts, they focus on those years. They focus on 215 and later. So if you came to me with a 2006 Ram or an F-150, right? Or God forbid, a 1978 F-100, right? I could get you parts for it. It might take a while, but I could get you parts for it. Not a problem. But that is a relatively good segment that we do. We do separate out our used business from our new, so we do know what that is. But for the most part, it's new trucks. It just amazes me, Patrick, that somebody will go out and spend $120,000 on a pickup truck,
Yeah.
and then bring it to you to do the bed liner and do other accessories as well. Lighting is a big thing too. Everybody wants lighting. And if you look in the world of 12 volt, it's endless, right? It's endless what you can do with lighting nowadays on vehicles. And people want their headlights changed out, or they want special lightings for their bumper, or they want a roof rack lighting if they're going to go off-roading. That's also very, very popular with new truck buyers.
I'm curious because earlier you'd mentioned the growth that you anticipate in the aftermarket doubling. Um,
Yeah.
is that because, in your opinion, is it because the OEMs are lacking in accommodating needs that people want, or is it because of the consumer saying, I don't want this run of the mill vehicle that had 300,000 units produced this year. I want something unique to me?
Okay, so I think it's a little of both. All right. Obviously, number two, the customer definitely wants the vehicle to be theirs, right? In a lot of cases, they just don't want a run-of-the-mill vehicle. The problem with the OEs and aftermarket accessories is that they're very limited. The installation of accessories doesn't necessarily fall into what a dealership does well. A dealership does well on selling vehicles and doing repairs and doing maintenance, right? Those types of things in their service department. What they're not geared up to do is sell accessories. Plus that they're somewhat restricted because they can only sell what could be approved by GM or Ford, or Stellantis, whoever the manufacturer is, right? So that kind of restricts them to what they can do. Whereas at Line-X, we have no restriction. We have availability to almost 800,000 different SKUs. We have websites where we could, it'd be like Christmas time, right? Like back in the day, right? When I was growing up and I would get my Sears Christmas catalog as a kid and 10 years old and be sitting there going through sleeping with it, right? Somebody who was a truck enthusiast could spend hours on that website going, wow, right? It's almost daunting the amount of variety that's out there. And the dealerships, quite frankly, can't do that, right? They can't. And we're capable of doing pretty much whatever you want, as long as the vehicle is structured for it.
It's very interesting. This gives me a really good overview of not just how I can customize my vehicle, but protect it. I think that's one of the major things, whether we're buying an older truck, it has some nostalgia, or we have a connection to it, or it's new and we want to protect that $120,000 investment in ways that maybe they didn't come that way from the OE. But also, a segment I like to do on podcasts when I have professionals on is one of my main goals with this podcast is to be able to show younger people that if they're passionate about automotive and with any platform, that there's a roadmap or a way that they can get into this. There's so many different avenues for it, whether it's with Line-X, whether it's being a mechanic, in sales, management. There's so many different ways. I wanted to ask you, because this is so interesting to me, because I am sure on a daily basis, you guys see every type of vehicle, Jeeps, probably tons of cars, trucks, everything in between. You can get your hands on every single aspect. We've talked about forecasting, we've talked about engineering, we've talked about franchises. What would you, what tips or advice would you give someone who's younger? Maybe they're not happy in the career they have, or maybe they're just out of college and they're thinking, I want a career in the automotive aftermarket. I really loved what I heard on this podcast, and I'd like to get into that. What are some tips you'd give someone as they attempt to step into that career?
Well, Patrick, I can pretty much, I can only speak for myself. I do mentor people from time to time, but I tell everybody all the time that my success is based on where I started. And I started working on cars, right? I mean, like I said, I was an ASE certified master technician for a lot of years. And I attribute the fact that I was successful in my career because of that background, right? And I still have that skill today. I mean, I don't sit and work on cars every day, right? But I mean, that skill has taken me into so many different directions, but it's also helped me from my aftermarket automotive management side too as well. I mean, I can get into a room with, any one of our vendors and I can talk their language. And that's super important to have an understanding, a base. You have to have a base of where you started from, right? And I think about the trades today, right? And there's just not enough people in it. As an automotive mechanic, I was very successful. I made a lot of money, right? I mean, if they hadn't offered me a better job, I'd probably still be doing it today. Although physically, I don't know if I could still do it. But but for me, that got me really tied into it and really made me think about it. I was huge into rebuilding Harley Davidsons from the ground up, right? Customizing them and making them. So a lot of background, actually doing the work, right, got me to where I am today. I think from a young person's perspective, I think going into business or where do you want to take your career? What do you want to do? What do you think you're good at, right? It's always good to take a look at, the basics and also to be very patient moving forward. And you need to have a set of rules, Patrick, right? A set of rules, right? And I use one of the rules that I use every day in my life is that I'm focusing on things that are important in my life and in business, but not urgent. That gives me the time to be able to develop, think about my future, think about what I want to do, map it out. But if I'm constantly in a frame of mind where everything is urgent and important, I'm a failure. I'm a failure. So, I mean, I could go on for a long time talking about, you know, business and management and, career goals. I mean, I've got 9 grandchildren and 5 kids and, all of my kids are successful because they followed rules. And the rules is that you make a plan, you be patient, right? You're not going to get promoted tomorrow. You're not going to have all the things you want on day one, but you do really, really good at what you're supposed to do today, and tomorrow will come. I was a great mechanic, and somebody said, "Hey, what do you think about being a service manager?" Or, "Hey, how about running the store?" Or, "Wait a minute, how about being a trainer for the company?" Right? And then it just went on for there. So I just worked very hard at what I was doing today. I hope that kind of answers it, and I wasn't too long-winded.
That was excellent advice. I think it really helps. It helps people who are thinking about doing this. There's so many positions and options, whether it's graphic design, whether it's sales, whether it's logistics, whether it's marketing, whether it's so many different aspects to it that if you have a passion for automotive in any capacity, there's a role in the aftermarket. And it's exciting. I think there's so much of a unique perspective that people from the outside coming in can give in the way that they might look at a vehicle and say, why don't we do this? Or, hey, this would be a great idea, a service to offer that maybe I wouldn't think of because I've been around it for so long. It's always love to kind of throw that question out there for professionals in the industry and ask them. But I really appreciate your time today, George, chatting with me, sharing your story about Line-X, the evolution of the brand, the product line. As I mentioned before, I've been a customer for a really long time. I love the product, and I know a lot of people who use it, and even some people who Line-X their whole truck because they didn't want to beat up the paint driving through the mountains and the brush and tree branches scratching it, and people that would use it in Jeeps and on bumpers and so many different applications. So I really appreciate your time today chatting with us. If people want to find a local branch, maybe they want to look up different products, do they just go to linex.com and they can find everything right there?
Patrick, that's what I would suggest. I would suggest just go to linex.com. You can type in your zip code and it'll bring up a local location. It'll also give you a phone number for the corporate office that you can reach out and find somebody here too as well. That'll help you out. So, and I want to thank you too for having me on. I appreciate the offer. I'm glad to be here. I'm hoping it was productive for you and for your base. Like I say, I love trucks and, been doing it for a long time and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you again. Like I said, I really appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thank you, man.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code TDP2540. It'll get you 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money and get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different opening mechanisms, handle designs. And their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget that you might have. So if you're in the market, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code TDP2540 for 40% off MSRP. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Tyler Lowe in a 23 Diesel, Cutter Up Rob, Robert, all of other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps. Follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 9 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2025. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.